Tonight we're beginning the 18th chapter of Tanya. The 18th chapter, in a way, is a new beginning in Tanya. The Tanya explains a verse in the Torah. That it's very close to you. Hashem says to the Jewish people, to the Yidden, that it's very close to you to keep the Torah. Not only in your deeds, but also emotionally, to do it, the mitzvahs, with feelings. Because the full way to do the mitzvahs is not only to do the action, to do it right, but also to do it with feelings, to do it with emotion, to do it with compassion. It's because chapter 18 gives a new direction, a new idea on the verse Ki karev elecha hadavar ma'od b'ficha b'lvavcha la'aseh. All of Tanya, the Alter Rebbe says on the cover page, which is called in Yiddish the Sharblat, he says that the whole book is based on a verse on the Torah, one line in the Torah, that it is very close to you, Hashem says. It's very close to you to do the mitzvahs. So although there are 630 mitzvahs, and we may find that some of the mitzvahs are quite challenging, Hashem tells us and reassures us that it's very close to you to do the mitzvahs, and not only in action, but b'kficho bilvavcha, also with your heart, to do it with feelings, and to do it with your whole being. The action, and also what inside of you, your feelings, your emotions. And in that way, it's a complete mitzvah when you do it with feelings as well. In the first part of Tanya, he gave, the direction was to, if you meditate and you think about the greatness of Hashem, you'll have feelings. To do the action, he said, it is natural for us to be in control, because the mind controls the heart. So therefore, a person is created naturally to be in control of himself. If a person finds he's not in control of himself, that's already an aberration. That is because he got in the habit of doing things in an unnatural way and an irrational way. But the way Hashem structured man, that he could be in control of himself if he only wants to, because like the Zohar says, Moyach shalat al alev. So therefore he can do things and be in control of himself. And as far as emotions are concerned, he can, so to say, create the proper atmosphere by meditating about the greatness of Hashem, and through that he can inspire himself. And that is also part of the meaning that the mind controls the heart. It's not only in his action, but also in his emotions. Now here's going to be, the Alter Rebbe says there's another way. And the Alter Rebbe is going to teach us in chapter 18 that really we have inside of us already built-in emotions and love for Hashem. That is part of our instinct to love Hashem. And he's going to elaborate on that. So we have two ways and two paths to connect with Hashem. In fact, one of the Chassidim of the previous generation, Reb Shlomo Chaim Kesselman, he pointed out that in the cover page, the Sharblat of Tanya, it says there's a long short way and a short long way. One is longer and one is shorter. And he explained that up until chapter 18, from 1 to 17, it's the longer way. It takes harder work, because you have to create, so to say, a love. If you don't feel love, meditate, think, study, develop feelings for Yiddishkeit. So it's a longer process to work on yourself to develop feelings of Yiddishkeit, because you have to meditate, you have to study Chassidus, you have to study about Elikus, you have to spend time thinking. So it's creating feelings. So it's a longer way. And then there's the shorter way. So he explains, Reb Shlomo Chaim says, the Derech Kitzara is from chapter 18, where he speaks about the hidden and subconscious love that by instinct every Yid has. So here you don't have to create feelings. Here the Alter Rebbe is being our psychotherapist and saying that deep inside in our instinct we have a subconscious love. So it's not that we have to create a love or make a love, but we have to reveal what our hidden feelings are. So that is much closer and easier to accomplish than working on ourselves and creating a new type of love. So let's get to the text. Perik Yud Ches. Ulataisus bir bar heitev milas moed. And to explain better the word moed. The verse says, "Shebapasuk ki korav elecha davar moed v'goyim." The verse says, it is very close to you to serve Hashem. That's the verse which all of Tanya is based on. So it could have said, it is close to you. Hashem is saying, it is close to you. It's within your reach. It's you can accomplish it. You can. Yes, you can. That's what Hashem is telling us. Yes, you can. But the Alter Rebbe is pointing out, it doesn't say, yes, you can. It says, ma'oid, very much, very. It's very close to you. It's not just close to you. It's very close to you. So the Alter Rebbe is going to explain, that means that on one hand it's close to you, what he said until now, that we can control our mind, we can control our heart, we can control our actions. So it's close to you. That's our original program before we mess up. And now he's saying, you can't mess up because deep inside, right below the surface, if you scratch it, you're going to find the neshama of a Yid and bring it back to the surface. Because all you have to do is reveal it. So it's karev elecha davar moed, it's very close to you. And that's what he's going to explain. I would just add by illustration that there was a Chabad rabbi who traveled in America in the 1940s visiting Yidden about Yiddishkeit and also to raise funds for the activities of the Rebbe. In the 1940s, the previous Rebbe was Rebbe. On the oil you see on the right side, that's the previous Rebbe. And he came here in 1940. And he started this idea of going to different cities and working on Yidden. This rabbi who visited, I believe it was Chicago, of one of the cities in the Midwest. And he came back to report to the previous Rebbe about some of the more important people that he visited. Every Yid, of course, is important, but this was a wealthy Yid, and he came from Russia, and he had Chabad roots, and he was a supporter. So the rabbi said to him, the rabbi said to the Rebbe, reporting to the Rebbe, he says, well, this gentleman, he asked me what I'm doing visiting all these cities and so many of these people. much of those who are the wealthy and who give the tzedakah, they're very far from Yiddishkeit. So how are you convincing them and inspiring them to come back to their roots and support the work of the Rebbe and themselves to get more involved in Yiddishkeit? So the rabbi says to the Rebbe, I answered this philanthropist. I see my role, he said, like a scribe who's checking a Torah scroll. When a Torah scroll gets old, sometimes the letters chip or fade. So my role is that I'm like the scribe. I have the ink, and I'm going finding the Jews. Every Jew has a letter in the Torah. And because every Jew has a letter in the Torah, that is a complete Jewish people and a complete Torah. If a letter in the Torah is cracked or faded, it's not a kosher Torah, so it has to be corrected. So you bring the Torah scroll to a scribe. I'm the scribe. And that's what he said to this philanthropist. I try to fill in the cracks and to add ink to the faded letter, that the letter, that his Yiddishkeit should be strong. The Rebbe liked his answer, but he says, it's a good answer, but the truth is, it's much deeper than that. Because it's not like letters. The neshamas of a Yid is not like letters that are written on parchment, but it's like letters that are carved in stone. It's like the letters of the Aseres HaDibros, the Ten Commandments, that were carved into the stone of the luchais that Hashem handed to Moshe. What's the difference between letters that are carved in stone and letters that are written on parchment? Letters that are written on parchment, they could fade, because the parchment and the ink are two different mediums. It's two different things. So since parchment and ink are two different mediums, so the letters can crack, the letters can fade, the letters can sometimes fall off of the parchment. So you have to rewrite it or add to it. You have to add something to, so to say, vitalize the letters. You have to add something. But when letters are carved in stone, the reason you can't see the letters is because dirt fell onto the letters. There's some mud on the stone. And all you have to do is wash the mud away. It's not that you have to recreate the letters. You have to expose the letters that were covered with dirt. And that's really the job of Chabad. Not to recreate the Jew and give him a neshama. It's not to give a Yid a neshama that he doesn't have. It's to remove the dirt and to reveal the neshama that is in there. And that's chapter 18. And that's why it's very close to us. It's very close to us to serve Hashem also with feelings, because we have to reveal and expose the inner neshama that's in us. And he continues to raise the issue. You have to know ki af mishadati ktsara b'diyas Hashem. Even someone who doesn't have a deep understanding in Hashem. He doesn't have the heart and the understanding to think about or understand the greatness of Hashem. He cannot follow the advice of the earlier chapters in 17 and 16 and 15 and 16 and 17 especially, and before that many times, where the Alter Rebbe says that a Yid can focus his mind and meditate and move himself. He can, if he doesn't have the feelings, he can create the feelings by meditating and thinking deeply about the greatness of Hashem. So now he says, what happens if someone doesn't have that mind? And he doesn't have it in him emotionally to inspire himself. Nevertheless, it is very close to him to get that love, to reveal that love, to experience that love. Lishmer v'lasa is kol mitzvahs ha'torah, the Talmud Torah keneged kulam. It is very close to him to keep all the mitzvahs, and especially the study of Torah, which is always emphasized by the Alter Rebbe, studying Torah. And he can move himself to do it b'fiv v'vavei mamish. He can, with words and with feelings, me'umka deliba. And if you do this with the depth of his heart, where in his heart is it? There's a hidden love that's deep inside all of Yidden, which we inherited from our ancestors. And that is the key. The key two words are Ava Mesuteres. That we have the God gene, so to say. There is out there a discussion, even in the secular media or in the secular literature, about the possibility of a God gene. I'm not a maven in what the secular literature says about the God gene. But Tanya is saying here that in us is a hidden love, a hidden programming that we inherited. And by the virtue of the fact that you're a Yid, you have that hidden love. And just like when someone is visiting a psychotherapist or a psychiatrist, and he swears that the reason he has this anxiety or that fear, he has his own explanation. His therapist is going to tell him, no. There's a real explanation, is because subconsciously there's an issue that you have buried from your childhood, from some trauma, from who knows what. And the person could scream, but no, I don't see that. I have no complexes, I have no trauma, I love my mother, I love my father. And he's arguing with his therapist. So the therapist is going to say, but you're wrong, I'm the professional, you're not. So I don't know about the way it is in therapy, or those who agree with Freud, or don't agree with Freud, and all the new approaches to psychotherapy that are now the cutting edge. I'm going to tell you what the Alter Rebbe, who is the psychotherapist for Klal Yisrael, is saying. He's saying, listen, Yid, you have a subconscious love for Hashem that you are programmed with, and that is a gene, a spiritual gene in your neshama, which he's going to elaborate in this chapter, in the next chapter, in the depth and understanding of this hidden love. Now, I call the love a subconscious love because it's below consciousness, it's below the surface. I'm using the word subconscious in my own terms. I know that, in the study of psychology and psychiatry, they use the word unconscious and subconscious, and there's a difference between unconscious and subconscious. So I'm not going to go into that, even though the Rebbe pointed out also to men of science that the idea of a subconscious or even unconscious is not something that was discovered by Freud or to the the psychologists of the 18th century, or the 19th century, or the 19th century, the 20th century. This is not their new thing, but it's already found in Rambam and in Kabbalah way before the secular men of science discovered this concept. But therefore it is a Jewish concept, and clearly over here this hidden love is part of that. And I'm using the word subconscious because I understand unconscious could mean something that will never come to the consciousness. It will never come to the fore. The Alter Rebbe speaks about this hidden love. He calls it the hidden love because it is below the consciousness, and through thinking about it, we can work on ourselves to bring it to the consciousness. And in fact, in the following chapters, until the end of the first section of Tanya, he's encouraging a person and saying, just think about that really you are programmed with a hidden love or a subconscious love, and just making yourself aware of it will click with the actual subconscious love that you have in yourself. So therefore I like the word subconscious over here, because it's below conscious, and really the goal of Yiddishkeit is that our subconscious should be in sync with our consciousness. That we should really appreciate and understand and feel in the depth of our mind and our heart that which is already there in our subconscious, and maybe by some Yidden it's in their unconscious because they're totally unaware of it. But it's there. And it's there because we inherited its Yerushalayim. And now he says, let us analyze that hidden love, the Ava Musateres. We have to first understand and analyze what is the root of this love, the inyana, and what is the nature of this love, exactly the dynamics of this love, how this love works. These are two things. Sharsha, it's shayrish, its root. The dynamic, inyana. The Eichi Yerushalayim, number 3, how exactly is it inheritance? And number 4, he's asking, Ve'eich nichlal bod gam dechilu. That in this love, there's also a sense of fear of God, or awe of Hashem. Because we have to have both Avas Hashem and Yiras Hashem. So you have to have both types of feelings. The reverence and awe that comes from distance, and the love that drives us to closeness. So we're calling this a hidden love, but in hidden love, there's also a motive of awe and reverence towards Hashem. So to understand all of this, he begins with the root. Where do we get this from? And how is it an inheritance? So he says, our ancestors, specifically Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, they are a chariot. These are terms found in Kabbalah and the Zohar. David was a Merkava, but the 4 legs of the Merkava, of this chariot. So the chariot is a wagon really that has 4 wheels. I don't know the way it's illustrated in elsewhere, but the 4 legs of the Merkava is Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and like you mentioned, David. Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov are the fathers of our peoplehood, and David is the father of royalty until Melech HaMashiach. So, because they were, so to say, Hashem's chariot, the Merkava actually originally is a term that's used in the vision of Yecheskel, where he saw a chariot. The word is used there is exactly the word Merkava. But that chariot has wheels and it's led by angels. And the Zohar says that is the chariot that's up there. But there is the Hashem's chariot that's down here, and who mans that chariot? Who are the ones that move it? Are Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and David. But specifically we're talking now about Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, because we are all descendants of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And even the neshamas of the converts, also their neshamas are from Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. That's why a convert is called the son of, or the daughter of Avram Avinu. So since they were the Merkava, Valkein Zochu Lahamshech Nefesh Ruch Neshama Levnei Machreim Adoinam. Therefore, they were able to bring down special neshamas to all of Yidden forever, for all future generations. Everyone who's halachically Yid has in himself neshama that is there because our ancestors, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, brought down a neshama that is part of Hashem. And that is the programming from which this hidden love comes from. So let's analyze this a bit. Because they were a chariot, they were able to bring down in every neshama godliness, like he's going to explain soon. And that spark, that is the programming for that hidden love. But before even the hidden love, you have to understand there's godliness in us. And who was able to bring down that godliness? Our ancestors. And why? Because they are a chariot. What is the meaning of Merkava? It's mentioned also in earlier chapters of Tanya. The sense that we use the word Merkava in Chassidus and Tanya and in Kabbalah, and when we say Avram Avinu was a Merkava, he was a chariot, is by first understanding what does the word chariot mean in the secular sense, in the plain sense. A person wants to get somewhere, he has a chariot. It's an automobile. It's a means of transportation. So how do I get from here to there? Through transport. So therefore, they have then a chariot, they have a car, or have a plane. All of these are instruments of who? Of man. So I have a plane and I hire someone to fly a plane, or a few hundred people hire someone to fly a plane, so they get from New York to Arizona or elsewhere. So that plane, who's in control of that plane? Who directs that plane? Man. Same thing in a car. Same thing in a chariot. And the rider of that chariot is the one in control. The chariot can't change its mind. The plane can't change its mind. Well, I'm not going to Arizona. I'm in the mood of stopping in Chicago. I mean, that could happen in today's planes, but it's not the plane that decides it. So, why? Because the plane has nothing of its own. It is just a tool of the rider. The chariot is just an instrument and the tool of the rider. Now Hashem wants to get to places. He wants to get somewhere. Where does he want to get? He wants to get to this world. And before Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, very few knew that there's a creator. Very few knew about the whole concept of monotheism. Even the secular historians talk about the Hebrews gave the world monotheism. So who brought the message of Hashem to the world? It's the Avos. Our patriarchs, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, they brought that message. So it's as if to say that Hashem is writing Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov because through them he is getting places, he's being transported, so that the world knows about Hashem. Of course, Hashem doesn't need to be transported, because Hashem is everywhere. Hashem fills heaven and earth. But the revelation of Hashem, the consciousness that the world should know about Hashem, this was the mission of Yidden, and the influence into other religions and all of mankind. Although it's not perfect today, Mashiach HaKam will be more perfect, it will become perfect actually. But the means of transportation, so to say, the Merkava, were Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Now, that is why they had no selfhood. A car has no will of its own. A car is just an instrument of its owner. So Avram had no will of its own. His will was Hashem's will. Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, that's all they were. They were nothing. What am I? And nothing. What do you want me to be? Hineni. What do you want me to be? That's what I am. And they saw their mission, only one thing, to serve Hashem and to bring the message of Hashem to the world. That was Avram's mission. He surrendered himself completely to Hashem. And Hashem, the presence of Hashem was in him. There was nothing else to him except for his awareness of Hashem, and living that awareness in every molecule of his body and every second of his day. And that was the mission of his life. And that's why when he had children, the Zera Yisrael, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, the climax was through Yaakov. Through them, the Yidden have in themselves that godliness, that awareness of Hashem that they inherited from Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. In other words, why are we descendants of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov? Why are they the patriarchs? It's not only because historically they started the genealogical course and family of the Jewish people. It's really because of a spiritual genealogy. It's really because of the neshama dynamic. And therefore, they were able to be mamshech, to bring down souls that are solely and completely godly. And that part of us that is not is additive. It's the mud that's on top, or the physicality that Hashem added to our neshama structure. But where is the original core? The original core is the godly neshama that they brought down. And therefore there's nothing else in that essence of the neshama. The neshama, in its rawness, is pure godliness or awareness of godliness, and nothing else. There is a mashpia, Rabbi Yoel, he should have a long life, he's an older rabbi, and I studied by him, I had the great pleasure of studying by him. And he pointed something out over here in this chapter. He says that sometimes people have very bright parents, and the son or the daughter is not very bright. So even though the Mishnah says that there are several things that we inherit from our parents, but in fact sometimes we see good-looking parents have an ugly child, or very bright parents have a child that's not very bright. It skips a generation. So and over here we're saying that every Yid has in himself this godliness that he inherited from Avram Avinu, from Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov. Every Yid. It's also the Imois, Sarah, Rivka, Rachaleah. So he said, do you know why the inheritance of the genes, the physical genes, by a person not necessarily makes the exact replica of the parents, and the spiritual genes, there is the exact replica of Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, their hidden love we have. Then, and every Yid has it. He said it's because by a regular person, he has good looks, but it's possible that in him are also genes of not good looks. And the person could be very bright, but it could be also in his programming, there's some genes or something there that is not bright. And it just happened that this child didn't get the right delivery of the genes that person had. They say a joke. There was a professor who was brilliant, but he was ugly, and no one would marry him. And he's getting up there in age. He wants to get married, and he also wants to have beautiful children, and he wants a beautiful wife. So who's going to agree with that? So he had one student who was very far from bright. And because she was not bright, he convinced her to marry her. And he would say to her, with me and you, we're going to have the finest children. We're going to have children that are brilliant like me and beautiful like you. So they have the first child, and he is dumb as can be and as ugly as can be. So she asks, what happened? Well, in this case, this child inherited your intelligence and my looks. But over here, the Alter Rebbe is saying, what is he saying over here? That every Yid inherits the genes of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov that has godliness and has an unconditional love for Hashem that is hidden. So Rabbi Yael explains that genes not always are reproduced in the child, because each one of us has a bundle of genes that were not revealed in this generation, the skip a generation or two generations, and come back later. But that's because there's more to each person than what you see. But to Avram Avinu, there wasn't anything else to him but the love of Hashem, the awareness of Hashem. He was a chariot of Hashem. That's the word of Rabbi Yael said. That's what Merkava means. And since there was nothing else to him except his neshama, so therefore there's nothing else to give to his children except neshama dynamics and neshama genealogy and neshama matter and godliness matter. That's the matter of his genes. That's the programming. That's the genome. It's not only zechut avot. It's not a zechut is a merit. Here's the programming. So zachu lahamshech Naram lebnei machreim ad oilam. So because there was nothing else to them except their godliness and their own personal hidden love for Hashem in their subconscious, so therefore their descendants, they brought them neshamas, the neshamas that they brought down to Yidden have that. Where did they bring these neshamas? Me'es esfiras de kedusha sheba'arba olam asabiyah, from the spheres, from godliness himself. That level of godliness, that is the 10 spheres which reflect the intellect, godly intellect, and godly emotion. So Yidden are part of that. And the godly soul has part of godly intellect and godly emotion. And that's why that soul has an awareness of Hashem that has no limits. And they brought it l'chol echad ve'echad k'fi madregasa k'fi ma'aseh. They were able to bring that to each person, every Yid, according to his level. V'al kol panim afilu l'kal shebekalim u'poish Yisrael. And even to the most rebellious Yid, the most rebellious Yid, who doesn't participate in any Torah classes, who's not ready to give him a helping hand to another Yid. He has within himself an unconscious love, a subconscious love that is there because he has in himself spiritual genes that are godly and they're part of his instinct. Nimshach bizivugam nefesh de malchus dasiyah. When a Jewish couple come together to conceive a child, there's much happening up there because they are capable of drawing down a Yiddish neshama. And that neshama is part of Hashem that has the 10 spheres, the Kedusha. Every Yid, even Yidden that are rebellious, who don't keep the mitzvahs, in their union, they are bringing down a child that has a neshama, that in that neshama is godliness. That's why the Kabbalah looked at the union of marriage as something that can be very holy. Because in that union, they're reflecting the union that's going up in heaven by Hashem and drawing down a neshama that's part of Hashem. So therefore they're bringing down a neshama first from the lowest level of godliness, malchus dasiyah, shemadrega tachtoina shebekdushas hasiyah. So even though they're drawing down the lowest level of godliness, nevertheless, all of godliness is linked to each other. Rather became ach shimes esfiras kadeshes he klula mekulan. So therefore, even though technically the neshama is coming from a lower level of godliness, which in Kabbalah calls malchus of asiyah, but all of levels of godliness include it all, and specifically what he is interested in is chachma. Chachma is God's wisdom. And God's wisdom in human being is the aware. The highest level of wisdom is a certain sense, an awareness, and a light to the truth. So therefore, every neshama has in himself that, what he calls the b'chinas chachma, that's in Hashem, which grants every neshama a possibility of a light and an awareness of godliness, and that is the root of that hidden love or the subconscious love. Gam chachma dasiyah shebetoichel lubeshes chachma demachas datzilas shebetoichel chachma datzilas sheba meir oirin tzev baruch hamamish. Now, in that higher level of the spheres, what we call Hashem's level of Hashem's wisdom, Chachma, in there, the light of the Or Ein Sof himself shines. Which means that every neshama, no matter what kind of a yid it is, has in himself a point deep inside where the Or Ein Sof shines. And that's why, deep inside, we are already wired to connect with Hashem, to connect with Yiddishkeit. That all of creation, and also the other spheres. So even though, in terms of Kabbalah, the neshama comes from the lower level, from Asiyah, but since all of the levels come from Chachma, Kulam b'Chachma Asisa, so that level of Chachma, which has the light of the Ein Sof, of the essence of the light of Hashem, of the essence of Hashem, of the infinite level of Hashem, there is that spark in every single yid. No matter who that yid is. That is the secret of Chabad. Chabad is famous for reaching out. And it goes back to the Baal Shem Tov 300 years ago. He said, every yid you have to love, every yid you have to love. And the Maggid, the disciple of the Baal Shem Tov, says, he said to one of his closest disciples, the Rebbe Elimelech, he says, Rebbe Elimelech, listen, do you know what they're saying up there in heaven? That you have to love the most wicked person, Yid. You have to love the most wicked Yid like you love the most righteous Yid. You have to love a Rasha Gomer like a Tzaddik Gomer. Which is very difficult, because someone who's a Rasha Gomer, who's a completely wicked Yid, is making a lot of trouble. So how can we bring myself to love him? So that's another question, how to bring yourself to love him. But what is the rationale that you should work on yourself to love him? That's because this is really a deep Kabbalistic concept that the Baal Shem Tov emphasized. And what he's saying here in Tanya, that's because every Yid, Yiyam Yisrael, no matter who he is, even if he's a rebel, Paishi Yisrael, he has in himself Ein Sof Baruch Hu Melubash B'Bchinas Chachma Shebnefesh Ha'adam Yiyam Yishiyah. The Ein Sof Baruch Hu, the infinite Hashem, is in his neshama. It's buried in a ton of dirt, because you see he's wicked, he's a Rasha, but it's there. And that's why the Rebbe said, go find the neshamas. It wasn't a popularity. The Baal Shem Tov wasn't there to be popular to the masses. This is fake history. It's because the Baal Shem Tov and the Rebbe in our times saw that every Yid has godly atomic energy. He has godly atomic energy, or godly energy, which is deeper than atomic energy, that we have to reveal because it's there. And don't think the Alter Rebbe says over here that this is a tiny atomic speck, spiritually atomic speck, but this is really his real life source. The real life source of the Yid, from head to toe, is this godly energy. That's the real source of his life. And then he continues, Mamshichim Poishe Yisrael Neshamas Gavoyis Ma'oid Shayimka HaKlipis Shekasa B'Sefer Gulgulim. And in the brackets, he's saying over here that we were speaking about the union of a Jewish couple, and the moment of conception, they're bringing down a spark of God. Ein Sof is in that neshama that they're bringing down. So he's citing from the writings of the Arizal Sefer Gulgulim that he points out sometimes you have a rebellious Jew who brings down to this world a very high neshama. We have a wicked person who has a son that's a tzaddik, who has a daughter that's a tzaddikus. And that neshama was lost somewhere. It was lost in the depth of the unholy, of the klippas, Kabbalistic terms. So again, you see over here that even a rebellious Yid, who knows what kind of thoughts he's having in the bedroom, very far from being tuned into the holiness that's going on, the Kabbalah tells us, and also in Halacha, that a person should make himself holy in the bedroom. Because if he acts holy, he's going to bring down a holier neshama. But according to what he said, taught us in Tanya, he's saying, yes, that's the preferable way, but the neshama is part of the dynamic that every Yid has. So even a couple who are not observant and they're rebellious in their behavior, they can bring down a neshama that is very high, because this is part of the programming that we inherited from Avram Avinu, that when you didn't bring down neshamas, the neshamas is part of Hashem, and it shines the light of Hashem, and that is part of our awareness, at least subconsciously, and we have to work on tuning that into our consciousness as much as possible. Good night.